So lately, I've been talking about the idea of being an AI maximalist. And so let me tell you a really brief story as to why, and that'll provide some crucial context as to where I'm coming from. So a few weeks ago, I got access to OpenAI's deep research tool, and it is not by accident that in those few weeks, I've been able to make really great strides on my burnout recovery. It turns out that burnout is an incredibly complex set of disorders, and even with Claude and ChatGPT and Perplexity before that, those don't hold a candle to the amount of help that OpenAI's deep research was able to give me. So, with that being said, I'm a full convert. I'm going to go full AI maximalist. And so here's the manifesto that I've been working on to say, what is AI maximalism? Now, the short definition is that basically the point of AI maximalism is that you want to saturate all domains with AI as much as possible. Uh, Basically, think about electricity. Like we're not saying, oh, electricity needs to be regulated. It needs to be, there's only certain places that you can use it. It should only be used in hospitals, but not in libraries or schools. Like that would be really absurd. And that's really kind of the level of discourse that's happening right now. Is people like, well, I don't know, AI. Maybe we shouldn't use it in government. Maybe we shouldn't use it in schools. Maybe we shouldn't use it in entertainment. Which, in the long view of history, is going to seem like a really stupid conversation. And so when you compare it to technologies like, I don't know, computers or electronics or electricity itself, there's basically no limit. So why don't we just cut to the chase and say that AI will eventually be everywhere? So why don't we just go ahead and make that the official policy? And so that skepticism is what not all of them, but what some of them call themselves are the neo-Luddites. And they're basically saying, well, I don't know, AI still hallucinates. It's like electricity can still electrocute you, but we still use it, right? Just because the technology is not perfect doesn't mean that that you can't use it and you can't deploy it. Because guess what? If a technology has flaws, you just work around them with safety protocols and other structures. That's why we have like the socket plugs and all kinds of warnings on on electrical things. You just get used to it. I mean, look at Tesla self-driving, right? It's not perfect, but it's safer than many humans, and so you built in some warnings. Um, Another thing that I wanted to point out is that AI maximalism is different from accelerationism. So the genesis of accelerationism was basically the world's going to break, so we might as well just break it sooner. That's the original philosophy, but now accelerationism is basically we should accelerate the development of AI and other technologies. But AI maximalism is specific to AI, and it's not about rate, it's about saturation. The goal is to saturate the world, basically everything that you do in your day-to-day life, business, government, everything saturated with AI. It's not all going to work. So this is one thing that I want to point out is just because you try and put AI somewhere doesn't mean it's going to work. It doesn't mean that the AI is ready. It doesn't mean it's going to be helpful. In some cases, the AI is not ready yet, and it actually costs more than it helps. So that's just kind of setting the stage for AI maximalism. Now, let's talk about why I feel like this philosophy is necessary. You might say, like, Dave, who cares? Like, it's going to sell itself. Yes, eventually in the long run. However, one of the primary reasons that I think AI maximalism is necessary as a conversation is institutional gatekeeping. Whether it's the medical establishment, the academic establishment, entertainment, government, all of these establishments that should be like, yes, this is the best new cutting edge technology. We need to be going, full tilt into this. A lot of them are saying, well, I don't know. This isn't, it's not, it's unproven technology. All technology is unproven until you try it. Right. Like it's just people like the skepticism and the Luddism is just not helpful. Next is political ignorance. Consider that something like 25 or 30% of all American Congress people are over the age of 70. I mean, when they were growing up, you didn't even have 8 tracks. You had records. They had vinyl and AM radio. So AI is just like, I don't know. I don't even really know how to use email. And I know that not all old politicians are like that, but too many of them are like that. And so we, the people, just need to come together and say, look, AI should be everywhere, right? If you're not trying it, you are like, if you're saying, well, I'm too skeptical, so we're not even going to try it, you're doing a disservice to your nation, your people, your business, whatever. And again, going back to the fact that it seems technologically inevitable. You compare our, AI to electricity, which had many downstream consequences, air conditioning, internet, all kinds of stuff. Like there are so many comforts that come from these general purpose technologies that like you would never go back, right? If society got nuked tomorrow, one of the first things that you would reestablish is electricity. If you had to rebuild civilization as it is today, electricity is one of the first things that you'd put back. And in 5, 10, 20 years and 100 years, we'll say the same thing about AI. It's like, hey, guess what? You can compress literally all of human knowledge and thinking into a machine. Like, yeah, do that, because then you have a walking, talking encyclopedia at all times. And again, like I said, it's not going to work, so we need to do experimentation. And a lot of these things are not necessarily obvious. When electricity was first invented, we didn't really know what to do with it. It's like, cool, if you short it out, you can make a light bulb. So like a light bulb was like the first order consequence of electricity. And then it's like, oh, wait, now we can have electromagnetic coils. What do we use those for? I don't know. And eventually some people figured out, oh, wait, you can use electromagnetic coils to make motors. That's cool. And then another thing we figured out over time with the help of Nikola Tesla and others was like radio. You can actually transmit signals over the air, right? So like all of those downstream consequences would not have happened if the establishment was like, well, I don't know, electricity seems dangerous, we should just regulate it out of existence. It's like, no, it's a new technology. Go forth and play with it. And then finally, reduction of suffering. This is where it's personal for me. Is not that the Doomers and the Luddites actually slowed it down, which is, thankfully, like Max Tegmark's letter landed with like the thud of a dead cat, as they say on the financial investment Reddits. So what I'm referring to is Max Tegmark and his pause letter, where it's like, we should pause all AI development for 6 months. And they tried their damnedest to slow it down. And AI safety was a big thing for a while, but now it's kind of fading into the background. Why? Because Shoggoth failed to materialize. And all that the AI wants to do is generate Studio Ghibli images and help you write slide decks. It's not dangerous. That's not to say that there aren't dual uses and those sorts of things, which I'll address in just a second. But the fact of the matter is that for me, it's no longer about like, oh, it's a convenience, like it's a tool. No, like AI has literally probably saved my life at this point, because burnout was so complex and so painful and so disruptive. But now with all that help, I've untangled my medical mystery. So, and I'm just one person. There are billions of people on the planet that suffer from all kinds of things, whether it's chronic disease or poverty or whatever else, that having the right information tools could literally change their life for the better. We've also seen studies coming out showing that in places where they use AI tutors, like Texas of all places, they did an experiment with AI tutors, and all the students that used AI tutors shot up to the 98th percentile on tests. So it's like, gee, maybe we actually should saturate every domain with AI. Now, speaking of harm reduction, yes, all technologies have the potential for harm. Anyone who knows anything about history and technology, engineering, and technological ethics will say, yes, every technology is a dual-edged sword, or every technology is dual purpose. You can use a new technology to hurt just as easily as you can use it to harm. However, the question then becomes, well, how do you react to that? And the primary thing is proactive versus reactive harm reduction. Now, Europe, one of the reasons that Europe is so far behind technologically and getting further behind is because they take the proactive approach to literally everything. Now, I think food is generally safer in Europe because they're like, hey, those chemicals that you're spraying on those crops are untested, so we're going to ban them until you prove that they are safe. There's all kinds of chemicals that are just completely banned in Europe that are allowed in America. So in America, we have a reactive harm reduction model, which is there's certain thresholds that you need to cross. It needs to, pass muster with the FDA. But beyond that, if you want to feed people synthetic chemicals, go for it. If people want to buy it, let the market work it out. And guess what? The market is kind of working it out a little bit with, the surge in interest in organic food and sustainable and local and, BPA free and microplastic free and all that kind of fun stuff. Still, at the same time, the government could take a more active role in food quality. And food is a really good example of that proactive versus reactive harm reduction. The balance is not being 100% proactive or 100% reactive. the balance is saying how proactive versus how reactive do you want to be? Now, the difference between artificial intelligence and food is that you're not putting artificial intelligence into your body directly. It might be helping you figure out what to put into your body. But when you look at tools like Perplexity and OpenAI Deep Research, guess what? It can help you figure out diet really fast, and those sorts of things. So I just wanted to address this directly and say I'm not just saying go gung ho and no holds barred and AI is 100% good and there's nothing bad. But at the same time, sometimes the obstacle is the way. So fighting fire with fire. In some cases, some of the harms that AI can do, AI might also be part of the solution. In the same way that electricity can burn your house down, electricity can also power the smoke alarms and power the phone lines and internet that can call the fire department. So detection, prevention, and those sorts of things. AI can be part of the solution. It's not just a problem. And this is one of the chief issues that I've had with particularly the Doomer movement and also to a lesser extent the Luddite movement, is they frame AI as exclusively a harmful technology. There is no room in that epistemic tribe to see AI as good. They say, and when I say it like that, it's like I talked to the people at the AI safety camp because I was invited to go to the AI safety camp, and they're like, well, and this is why I ultimately didn't go. Is they're like, well, AI is a harmful technology, and I'm like, hold on, that's not a coherent statement. AI is not a harmful technology; it's a dual-use technology. So they were scientifically and technologically incoherent. So I said, take a hike. Anyways, moving on. So we're going to build a cultural movement around AI maximalism. So there's doomerism, which I've been talking about. There's accelerationism, which was the answer to doomerism. So doomerism said it's dangerous, shut it all down. Accelerationism said no, it's not, go faster, right? And so in terms of other cultural movements, Brian Johnson's Don't Die movement, I think, dovetails nicely with an AI maximalist movement, because guess what? One of the things that Brian Johnson has used to form his movement is AI. He's like, if the AI can make better health decisions than I can, I'm going to do what the AI says. That was literally like at the very beginning of his movement before it was called Don't Die, because I've been following him for a while. Like he's popped up on my radar because he was adjacent to the AI space. And so it's like, all right, so we have the neo-Luddites, we have the doomers, we have the accelerationists, and now we have the maximalists, which is AI should just be everywhere. AI should saturate everything in your life, and not just in your life, but also in all of society. Not all of it's going to work, but we need to try. And by creating that narrative, by just saying, I'm an AI maximalist, that's something you can identify as, right? Because I never really identified as an accelerationist, because they're a little bit culty, and the doomers are a little bit culty, and the AI safety people are a little bit culty. Everyone's a little bit culty, right? Brian Johnson is a little bit culty. So I'm just like, heck with it. I'll make my own cult. AI maximalist. There you go. Moving on. Real quick, I want to plug my Linktree. So I've got everything up on my Linktree, including Patreon, Discord, and my school community. So actually, am part of 3 school communities. So one is New Era Pathfinders, which is, hey, AI is changing how we're living. Let's talk about it. Let's figure out how to live. And that's why it's called the Pathfinders community, is because as society comes unglued, we need to reglue it back together. Another one is Literary Launchpad, which I run with my wife. So Literary Launchpad is our writing community, because my wife and I are both writers. And guess what? We talk about using AI to write. So if you want to get in and say, how do you use ChatGPT or Claude or Grok to write? We talk about that there. And then the newest one, which is yet to be fully announced, is the burnout recovery community. So as I've learned, I've become basically a world expert in burnout. Not that I wanted to be a world expert in burnout, but I became a world expert in burnout. So now I'm creating another community to support other people to recover from burnout. I've also got all of my other YouTube channels, Substack, and so on and so forth. But that's the big announcement. All right, back to the show. So when you look at electricity and other technologies, electricity, cars, radio, internet, those kinds of things, internal combustion engines, the attractor state of these technologies is inevitable. And so what I mean by attractor state and inevitable is this technology, this idea, this information is so useful that it sells itself and it will spread on its own. The Gutenberg printing press is another good idea, or a good example of that, because The Gutenberg printing press could literally print out the manual to build another printing press. And so then the printing press spread on its own. Within 30 years of the printing press being invented, it was in, I think it was in France, Italy, Germany, and I think it had spread to those three nations primarily. But within 50 years, it was all over Europe, and within 100 years, it was spreading to North Africa and the Middle East. Although some of the Middle Eastern countries banned it, or I guess they weren't countries as we know them today, the empires banned it because it threatened the jobs of scribes. Anyways, long story short, these technologies sell themselves. And just like an idea that can't be stopped, these technologies can't be stopped as well. So the inevitable end state of AI is that it's going to be anywhere, it's going to be everywhere anyways. So why try and slow it down? Instead, we need to be, okay, this is coming. We can't stop it. We're not going to slow it down. We don't have an economic or moral imperative to really slow it down unless you're anxious and you believe that it's going to just wake up and kill you for some reason. So instead we say, all right, let's go ahead and try it in the medical establishment. Let's go ahead and try it in academia. Let's go ahead and try it in the government. Let's do these experiments so that we know how to integrate it and we know where the dangers lie. So yeah, that's where I'm coming from. Now, on practical terms, when I say these technologies sell themselves, that's also, they literally sell themselves. There is an economic imperative to deploy AI everywhere. And so whenever you have a business leader or an industry or a politician saying, well, I don't know, maybe we shouldn't deploy AI there, they're actually harming our nation. They're literally harming our nation because guess who's not doing that? China is not slowing down. China's saying, we're going to put AI in the military, we're going to put AI in hospitals, we're going to put AI everywhere. Now, granted, China also uses AI to monitor their civilians. So that's an example of like, maybe we as a society should say, okay, we don't want a surveillance state, but we need to have that conversation. And you could also argue that there's a certain level of like, okay, there's a thing called open source int or OSINT, which is surveillance based on information that is in the free and clear. And it's like, why not use AI to monitor OSINT? That's what it's good for. I mean, that's what Palantir is doing. Now, I don't actually, how do you people feel in the audience feel about Palantir? Because I think Palantir is a really cool company, but some people think that it's the most evil company on the planet. So I don't know. Tell me in the comments what you think about Palantir. Anyways, between global competition, economic transformation, the prosperity distribution, because really, from my view, technology is the only thing that really dramatically improves quality of life in the long run. It's like you could go back to the wealthiest nation. You could be the wealthiest person back in ancient Egypt or in ancient Greece or ancient Rome or ancient China. Guess what? If you get malaria, you still die, right? If you get typhus, you still die. You had no air conditioning. You couldn't travel on an airliner. You didn't have internet and video games. Now, at the same time, you could also argue, yeah, but look at what technology has given us. It's given us, outrage online and porn addiction. Yeah, it comes with a double-edged sword. As I said, all technology is dual use. But at the same time, would you go back in time 500 years? No. All of us want to go forward 500 years. The reason that we all want to go 500 years into the future is technology, because technology will fundamentally and radically change your lifestyle. So not only do we have the economic imperative, no one really wants to go backwards. Now, finally, or maybe not finally, but next is the ethics of inaction. So there is a moral cost of hesitation. Any time that you delay these experiments and this deployment and this integration, you're actually prolonging unnecessary suffering and unnecessary destruction. Whether it's healthcare, climate, economic, business, whatever else, there are things that we could be doing that we're not doing because people are hesitant, because people are afraid, and because people are skeptical, and because people are digging in their heels and saying, I don't know, AI is just a passing fad. It's like, no, it's not. Come on, get real, get over yourself. I mean, really, that's kind of all there is to it. The rest of this is fluff. Now, I think that AI is a human right. This would be an interesting debate to be had. This is honestly why I am so pro open source, and I've run so many polls, and I know that I think 70% of you are like open source is the way. And China with DeepSeek and the other Chinese companies are really kind of showing yes, open source really is the way. OpenAI has done a lot to pioneer, to show what's possible, but between Meta and DeepSeek and all these other companies that are releasing open source models, AI is going to be fully commoditized before too long. And I mean, I guess there's not much else to say there. All right, so if you're on board, if you're an AI maximalist too, which I ran the poll and I think something like 90% of you are AI maximalists already. So I know that I'm preaching to the choir, but if you are, then here's the thing. Personal adoption. Use AI as much as you can. That's what we're exploring in New Era Pathfinders, which is how do you make your way in life in an era of AI? How do you work? How do you play? How do you live? How do you learn with AI? So adopt it personally. Next is business transformation. If you're in a business or running a business, you should be trying AI everywhere. That's what Julie and I have been talking about at First Movers AI. That's literally the whole point of the company is we serve first movers. And the company has been going through some transformations itself as we figure out what's the best way to serve the market. But that's the whole idea is if you're not deploying AI, you are doing your shareholders dirty. And just because it's not ready for everything doesn't mean that it's not ready for some things, and it's really going to move the needle. Next is policy. So government. It's we the people, businesses, and government. Those are the three legs of civilization today. We need politicians, whether you write to your politicians or vote for politicians or whatever, like you can move the needle by saying you need to be pro AI. We are AI maximalists. You need to be pro AI. If you're not, you're going to get voted out, or we're going to, say mean things about you on the internet, whatever. Next is institutions. So institutions include education, government, the medical establishment, those sorts of things. We need people in influential places to say, if you're not using AI, you're out. Like if you're the leader of a nonprofit that's trying to serve, some underserved community and you're not using AI to help serve that underserved community, you need to get out. If you're the head of an education department and you're not using AI to say, hey, maybe AI can help teachers, maybe AI can help students, maybe AI can help faculty, you need to get out. And then finally, advocate online, right? That's why we're here. YouTube, Twitter, all those places. If you build a movement, if you build consensus around a movement and say, we're AI maximalists, this is what we should do, the conversation will happen and the conversation will unfold on its own. All right, that's all. Thanks.